From the New York Times, updates. Colorado attack that injured 12 was planned for a year, officials say. The FBI said in a court filing that the suspect, an Egyptian citizen who had sought asylum in the U.S., brought more than a dozen incendiary devices to a march in support of hostages in Gaza. Here's the latest. The man who federal investigators say threw Molotov cocktails at marchers in Boulder, Colorado, as they voiced support for hostages in Gaza, had been planning the attack for a year, he said after his arrest. He was also clear on his motive, saying he wanted to kill all Zionist people and wished they were all dead, according to papers filed in federal court. Federal officials said on Monday that they had charged the man, Mohammed Sabri Soliman, with the hate crime for an attack that sent 8 people to the hospital with burns and other injuries and injured several others. The suspect yelled "Free Palestine" as he hurled 2 incendiary devices, and investigators said he had brought 16 additional devices to the event. He told investigators as he disguised himself as a gardener in order to get as close as possible to the marchers before attacking them. The Colorado suspect's immigration status was stalled in a common gray area, experts say. The question of how to define whether someone is in the United States legally can often spark a political debate. The attack in Colorado on people demonstrating in support of hostages in Gaza has generated questions on the immigration status of the man arrested in the episode, Mohammed Sabri Soliman, an Egyptian. The Department of Homeland Security considers people to be unauthorized if they are in the country and do not have a U.S. citizenship, a green card, an asylum grant, refugee status, or some form of temporary visa. Most unauthorized aliens entered the United States without inspection or were admitted temporarily and remained past the date they were required to depart, the agency explains in a glossary of terms in its website. Immigration experts and former federal officials said the question of Mr. Soliman's status was a nuanced one. Mr. Soliman arrived in the United States in 2022 on a tourist visa and overstayed, according to Tricia McLaughlin, a Department of Homeland Security spokeswoman. He applied for asylum with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services in September 2022, and he was still awaiting a decision on his application, she said. Immigrants in the United States can obtain work permits roughly 6 months after applying for asylum while waiting for their cases to proceed. That's how Mr. Soliman obtained his work permit in the spring of 2023. That left him in a type of middle place, said Carrie Doyle, a former top attorney for Immigration and Customs Enforcement during the Biden administration. Having a pending asylum application is kind of a halfway to having status, she said. It's not a status per se, but you can usually get a work authorization and you do have a right to present your case. Ms. Doyle said that the federal government can detain people caught in a gray area that Mr. Soliman was in and place them into deportation proceedings, but those people would still have a chance to continue with their asylum cases, as would Mr. Soliman, she said. Basically, it gives him permission to stay until it's resolved. The enormous backlog of asylum cases has meant that non-citizens can wait a decade or more for an asylum interview, and it can be years after that before they are ordered removed if they are not granted asylum, depending on how long appeals take, she said. So that's what the New York Times had to say about it. Understand the New York Times is a leftist-leaning mouthpiece. One of the things that's extremely annoying about stuff like this is that even though these people are clearly not Americans, they never call these terror attacks. They always describe them as something else. But I have to say, throwing Molotov cocktails, that's the kind of stuff you expect in foreign countries. That's not the kind of stuff that you expect in America. So it's interesting to note that we have imported people that are used to fighting an insurgent style of war, and no real thought has been given to that by these dumb shits that thought it was a great idea to import these people. I know why people attack people up here in Boulder. It's because the people of Boulder are as soft as Kleenex, man. Nobody here carries a gun. Nobody here will give any resistance. The most they would do is start filming with their cell phone. This is why Boulder keeps experiencing these problems, is because it's so sissified here. Please note that guy did not go to Aurora in the mall and try some dumb shit like that, because in the Aurora Mall, somebody would have shot him in 30 seconds. You think gun-free zones make you safe, man. They actually make you a target. And Boulder's kind of one big giant gun-free zone, just philosophically. And that's why so many people had to get hurt before the cops finally stopped this guy. That's the other thing too. People here have an incredible sense of entitlement in that they don't expect to have to defend themselves or their fellow community members. They expect somebody else to look out for their safety. They expect somebody else to look out for them. The only person who can guarantee your safety is you, man. The only person who can really truly protect you is you. And expecting police, who show up after the fact, by the way, to protect you is to have the wrong idea about what the police are actually there to do. So that happened. I felt like it was really important and that I kind of needed to talk about it. I hadn't really planned on doing this episode this morning, but I felt like I had to address this because I feel like part of the problem with Boulder is that it's become so soft that nobody here is vigilant. Nobody here is a guardian. There are no sheepdogs up in this bitch, just sheep. Yeah. Planned for a year. Kind of makes a strong argument for sending them all home. Especially if you're from the Middle East or someplace that's had significant turmoil, or you might have been a participant in some sort of war or fighting or insurgency or something like that. We don't need these people here. Why would you import an army of insurgents into your own country? Democrats? Why? Because you're trying to destabilize things? Because you're trying to make Americans afraid and bring terror on Americans? Because you need them to be afraid for your machinations of control to be viable? All right. I didn't have a lot of other notes, so I'm just going to keep this one sort of like about this subject. Thanks for being my people. Thanks for checking in. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, okay? I hope you're blessed. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, share, and comment. All those things are really great. They super help me out. They really do. So if you could be bothered to hit that like button or something, that would be fantastic, all right? All right. Until we meet on the next one, and I do hope everybody's going to join me for that, this has been a Matt Metler production, copyright 2025.